Hi there, Rad Mom here. Welcome back to the garden, my happy place to talk about scary things. Today on Garden Chat, our guest is Ricky.
Are you a previously beloved, problematic figure caught up in a controversy? Well, let me introduce you to a new product that is all the rage, Autism Shields.
Who calls herself Rabera Bonbon.
If you're getting criticism, all you have to do is put on your Autism Shield. I'm autistic. We don't understand racism.
And her bio is worth sharing, just for a little context. Hi, I'm an autistic filmmaker, and I like to talk about movies and stuff. Sometimes movies about autism, but sometimes just movies. I also talk about being autistic, being a bimbo, and being Jewish. Being dumb as fuck. I had a point, and I lost it. Oh well. I really enjoyed her video about the TV show Kevin Can Fuck Himself, and I was excited to see somebody else talking about Neil Gaiman. She goes so far as to actually discuss death of the author, bringing in a lot of nuance for a so-called bimbo. Until it came to the subject of BDSM. No one wants to defend the man, but a lot of people are strangely concerned that sexy violence might pick up guilt by association, doing their best to avoid applying any critical thought. They'll happily sacrifice Neil. He was doing it wrong anyway. You're supposed to ask permission before you strangle someone. They're happy to make an example of him in hopes of avoiding the uncomfortable question of why it is that he and so many other successful men seem to think entitlement to women comes with their royalty checks. And we're going to use death of the author as a metaphor, taking it from literature to feminism. Death of the patriarchy. Can we separate the man from the system that created him? Is there such a thing as ethical heterosexuality under patriarchy?
Every author has some unconscious bias because every person has some unconscious bias. That's just how being people sharking works.
Every one of us is affected by the system that we live in. Every man is affected by patriarchy, a system that tells him he is superior and women are objects.
So that excuses it then, right? There is no ethical consumption under capitalism, so we all have a free pass to consume whatever media we want, no matter the harmful things the author will do with our money.
So we might as well just cynically sleep with whoever we want. Consequences be damned. That sounds familiar, doesn't it?
No, that's not it either. While there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, that doesn't mean you just get a free pass to consume whatever you want.
No, giving up is not the answer.
The question doesn't lie in whether or not it's okay socially for you to continue to enjoy the art of people like Neil Gaiman or J.K. Rowling who have used their accumulated power to do harmful things.
The question is not whether it should be socially acceptable to enjoy a man's company.
The ethical consumption of the works of problematic writers lies in whether or not the artists are separate enough from the art for you to still feel like you can consume their content.
The question is whether or not the man is removed enough from groupthink to endorse him with your attention.
And if it is separate enough for you to enjoy it still, how do you engage in that to balance out the parts that don't align with your moral values?
That pretty much just works. How do you engage with the parts of his behavior you disagree with?
For many of us, it's hard to consume the works of people who do things as terrible as Gaiman allegedly has, mainly because it's so hard to reconcile that something that brought us so much joy could have contributed to getting so much pain to someone else.
For some women, relations with men and straight sex make them happy. Remember, we said no kink shaming. And it is hard to reconcile how something can be both the act of creation and an act of war.
So we have to look into our morals and ask, if I continue to read this, to watch, does that violate my morals? And if it does, can I just sew the buttons onto my eyes and allow myself to be consumed by it?
And now we're getting to the meat of the matter. I think too many women have been faced with this impossible choice because, unlike some dudes' books or music, sexuality is not optional. If you come to these realizations too late, it can be accept the buttons or live fully aware that your life is an impossible ethical conundrum.
It's still complicated. Separating art from the artist and applying death of the author are complicated frameworks of textual analysis that don't have an official yes or no answer.
The ethics of heterosexuality for women are complex and too often ignored. But it could be said that straight women need feminism. That's women's philosophy the most.
It's not entirely on the artist or the viewer. It's a balance of both.
It's not a perfect metaphor, but it's not on either the man or the woman to work against toxic conditioning. It's a team effort.
For many, the art is separate enough from the artist.
Some women don't worry about this stuff at all.
For some of those people, it's going to be a point to consume the work of Neil Gaiman, because by consuming the work of someone who was #canceled, you're a cool counterculture badass who's freed themselves from the woke mind virus.
Think tradwives.
None of the incidents described should be used as a means of spreading anti-BDSM kink misinformation, by the way.
And it's easy to write off a term like that, but I have to wonder what could cause someone to see so clearly that Gaiman's behavior was wrong, but work so hard to justify the same thing under the right conditions.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with consensual BDSM, but the acts that Neil has been accused of are not consensual and never can be, because he had significant power over both of them.
Define significant power.
Differences in sex hormones between men and women do lead to differences in muscle strength. So looking at the strength of the upper body, women tend to be 40 to 60% weaker than men. The lower body, they tend to be 25 to 30% weaker than men.
And as long as you engage in it responsibly, you're fine.
Define responsibly.
And there's nothing wrong with being kinky and having weird interests. Only thing I would say is make sure it's safe.
Women tend to be 40 to 60% weaker than men.
And if it's not safe, make it safe or don't do it.
The girl with the crazy hair is making the most sense here so far.
It's one thing to be turned on by it, it's another thing to actually do it.
Did he do it, right?
Yeah.
I know you've been heavy on social media talking about it.
He did it. And I'm the only one who's been vocal about this long before it actually.
Oh, you've been saying this for a long time now. And then no one was, they're just, why is he saying this? And now it's coming out like crazy. I mean,
But I also didn't participate. I also didn't go to those parties.
Yeah.
Too many people are complicit in this behavior themselves and therefore do not want to look at it critically. It's the same dynamic at play with P. Diddy's freak-offs, except that none of us are rich and famous.
So a lot of the celebrity culture that you don't hear saying anything is because they participated.
I mean, of course some of us have a thing for dominant men. We're autistic and they're direct with what they want. And with consensual BDSM, both parties are allowed to say no at any time.
Women tend to be 40 to 60% weaker than men.
Are they permitted to say no at any time? Is that guaranteed?
And if it goes too far, you stop. Immediately.
Is that guaranteed? Y'all want to talk about policing people's behavior, or how exactly do you propose that we enforce this?
The lower body, they tend to be 25 to 30% weaker than men.
And as long as you engage in it responsibly, you're fine.
So thank you so much for joining me out here in the garden today for just a little exploration of the ethics of sexual hierarchies. I could have titled the video that way, but it sounds dead boring, and I think it is a terribly underanalyzed subject, one that feminism has neglected and radical feminism is underutilized in. Y'all want to be critical of marriage and family? Well, I got one, and I'm here for it. This stuff is hard. It's very personal to all of us. But it's time to shine some light in these dark places while we can. And if you made it this far, why not give it a like? And consider subscribing to the channel so that we can all work together to bring feminism back into the real world, because as you can see, we desperately need it. Come back at the top of the hour for more. The live stream is always a lively discussion, and next Wednesday at 11 for a brand new video. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you then. Bye.